My name is Ethan Warren, and for most of my life, I was the invisible son. Not literally, of course. I was present in every photo album, every family dinner, every Christmas card lined with polite smiles. But behind the lenses, I faded. Like wallpaper. A fixture, reliable but overlooked. The spotlight? That belonged to Claire. Claire, the golden girl of the Warren family. Born 6 years after me, with a smile that could end arguments and a voice like sugar laced with cyanide. From the moment she came into the world, it was like she stole all the oxygen in the room, and everyone seemed grateful to suffocate. When she got a B in high school math, my parents blamed the teacher. When I got an A, they said, "That's expected." She got a car on her 16th birthday. I got a second-hand laptop and a lecture about self-sufficiency. Still, I never hated her. How could I? She was my sister. And more than that, I believed if I just worked harder, longer, smarter, maybe one day they'd see me too. So I buried myself in the one place where results spoke louder than praise: business. At 24, I took over operations for my father's flailing logistics company. It was supposed to be temporary, just until he found someone more seasoned. But when no one else stepped up, I stayed. Through grueling 16-hour days, missed holidays, and failed relationships, I built Warrantech from a regional delivery firm into a tech-driven logistics company with clients across the West Coast. By 32, I was COO. By 34, our revenue passed $70 million. And still, every holiday dinner, my mom would brag about Claire's new podcast, her Instagram following, or how she almost got hired by a big agency in New York. Claire never worked a day at Warrantech. Not until the stroke. It hit Dad on a rainy Thursday morning in February. I remember the call vividly, Mom's voice shaking, ambulance sirens in the background. I dropped everything and drove 3 hours through traffic to get to the hospital. Claire posted a selfie praying for Dad from her gym's parking lot. While Dad lay unconscious, my mother pulled me aside and whispered words that would haunt me for weeks. Claire should take over, just while things settle. It'll help her confidence. I blinked. What are you talking about? She doesn't know anything about logistics. Or operations. Or, she's got a good eye for people, Mom interrupted. She's creative. That's what we need now. What we needed. I was the one holding the company together. But I didn't fight. I told myself it was temporary. Let Claire play boss while I kept the machine running from behind the curtain. I was too exhausted to argue. Too worn to realize I was handing her the knife. The first weeks were a joke. She waltzed into board meetings in designer blazers, talking about synergy and vibe alignment. She hired her influencer friends as consultants. She scheduled branding photo shoots in our warehouses and spent company funds on motivational speakers. I kept my head down. I fixed what she broke. I reassured clients. I whispered corrections during meetings without taking credit. Until the morning I walked into my office and found the locks changed. I thought it was a mistake, a glitch. But then I got the email. Subject: termination of employment. Dear Ethan, effective immediately, your role at Warrantech has been dissolved as part of our leadership restructuring. We appreciate your contributions and wish you the best in your future endeavors. Claire Warren, CEO. I laughed. Out loud. Alone. A sharp, bitter sound that echoed too long in the hallway. I didn't storm into her office. I didn't call a lawyer. I didn't even reply. Instead, I walked out quietly. No dramatics. Just the steady breath of someone who had seen the betrayal coming for years and was only surprised it took this long. As I stepped into the parking lot, the California sun hit my face. And I smiled. Not because I was okay, but because finally, they made a move I could not only respond to, but crush. They say betrayal hurts most when it comes from the ones who say they love you. But what no one tells you is how humiliating it is when you still want to believe they didn't mean it. For the first 3 days after Claire fired me, I told myself it was a misunderstanding. Maybe she panicked. Maybe my mother pushed her. Maybe my father would wake up and set everything straight. I even drafted an email asking for a meeting, then deleted it. No one reached out. No apology. No explanation. Not even a courtesy call from HR. The company I had sacrificed my youth for had cut me off like a bad habit. And my family, my own blood, let it happen without a word. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't spiraling. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. I sat in my apartment for days, staring at the walls like they might give me answers. I played old voicemails from clients who once called me the backbone of the company, trying to remember who I was before they rewrote the script. I even considered walking away, letting them have it, starting over somewhere else. But then I remembered something my father once said, back when he still believed in me. Real power doesn't scream. It watches, waits, and strikes when it counts. So I watched, and I waited. I went back to the beginning, back to the safeguards I had quietly built when I first realized my parents never truly saw me as their heir. 3 years ago, when we started opening to outside investors, I created a holding company, Northspire Holdings. It was a legal shell, nothing flashy, just a structure to keep me protected in case the board ever turned political. Through Northspire, I had accumulated 34% of Warren Tekka's voting shares, all hidden in plain sight. Claire might have stolen the office, but I still held the knife. She just didn't know it. I reached out to Alan Trask, one of the original investors who had been with my father since the first warehouse lease. We met at a roadside diner, the kind of place where people still paid in cash and coffee came in chipped mugs. "She fired you?" he asked, shaking his head. "Kid, I thought you ran the place." "I did," I said quietly, "until they decided I was expendable." "She called me last week," Alan said, "trying to get me to back some ridiculous expansion into e-commerce apps. No strategy, just buzzwords. She's going to sink the company. You planning to stop her?" I smiled. "I'm going to let her do half the job herself." I didn't need to rush. Claire's ego would do most of the heavy lifting. All I had to do was collect the pieces as she dropped them. And she did, spectacularly. She hired an Instagram branding consultant to redesign our website, dropped 2 long-standing shipping partners to restructure cost centers, and approved $200,000 in rebranding efforts that resulted in a broken color palette and a slogan that sounded like a failed dating app pitch. Meanwhile, I worked the shadows. I met with former executives she had forced out. Marta, our longtime finance director, told me Claire had started routing vendor contracts through her influencer friends. Joe, head of operations, said morale was crashing, with good employees quitting weekly. The board was silent, for now. But silence doesn't mean loyalty. It means they're watching. And no one likes to back a sinking ship. So I built a war chest. I started buying up small shareholder blocks, quietly, legally. Former employees who had been granted equity. Retired partners who thought their shares weren't worth much anymore. All of it routed through Northspire. Each new percentage point brought me closer. Closer to control. Closer to a reckoning. And then, one night, around 2 a.m., my phone lit up. A message from an unknown number. "You think I don't know what you're doing? Walk away, Ethan. You're out. Claire." I stared at the words, her arrogance bleeding through the screen like perfume through paper. I typed only one word back. "Watch." Because while she was playing CEO on a stage she didn't build, I was rebuilding the foundation beneath her feet, brick by brick, vote by vote. And soon, I'd pull the floor out from under her. The first domino fell 2 weeks later. One of Claire's pet projects, a flashy app partnership with a startup run by her old roommate, imploded. The app, meant to revolutionize last-mile logistics, never made it past beta. The code was half-built, the UX was a disaster, and the startup team vanished after spending a sizable chunk of Warren Tekka's budget on branding videos and team retreats. I didn't lift a finger to stop it. Instead, I made a note of the financials, logged the losses, filed it alongside a growing folder labeled Evidence. This wasn't just a family feud anymore. It was a case building itself, line by line, invoice by invoice. While Claire was playing CEO, I was building a shadow network. The people she burned came to me. Former directors, operations leads, engineers, some of our best minds. Each of them discarded like they never mattered. They wanted a place to land. I gave them one. I formed a consulting group, Everline Solutions. On paper, it offered logistics optimization services to mid-sized firms. In reality, it was my silent army, a staging ground for talent and influence, ready to move when the time was right. I hired Marta back as CFO. Joe joined 2 weeks later. The energy in the room was electric, like we were planning something more than just a comeback. We were preparing justice. Meanwhile, I kept expanding Northspire's ownership stake. Some people sold their shares for cash. Others wanted in on Everline. I made deals, traded options, sweetened terms. Every move was strategic. Every signature was a step closer. Claire had no idea. She was too busy chasing headlines. She appeared in tech magazines, gave tone-deaf interviews about reinventing old-school business, and posted photos from conferences she didn't belong at. She hosted a Warren Tech Vision Gala at a hotel in LA, a $50,000 affair attended mostly by Instagram influencers and LinkedIn coaches. I attended anonymously. From the back of the room, I watched her stand under a spotlight and call herself a legacy disruptor. I didn't feel anger. I felt pity, because while she was rewriting the ending, I still held the pen. That same week, I received a call from an anonymous number. The voice was low, cautious. "I have something you'll want to see," the man said. He was a junior legal assistant, recently fired after raising concerns internally. He didn't give me his name, but he emailed me a PDF titled Project Apex, Draft Acquisition Agreement. It was worse than I expected. Claire had been in secret negotiations with a foreign logistics conglomerate, Asteros Group, to sell off 51% of Warren Tech's core assets. Warehouses, fleet management software, client contracts, everything. The sale would strip the company of control. Employees would be laid off. Tech would be gutted. And the deal was being pushed forward without proper board disclosure. It was illegal. It was reckless. And it was the final piece I needed. The next morning, I met with my attorney, Angela. We reviewed every document, every backdoor transaction, every failure to notify shareholders, every conflict of interest. She looked up from the file, her expression sharp. "You have her," she said. "She's cooked." Still, I didn't move. Not yet. Because there was one final piece I wanted in place. The narrative. I leaked carefully worded concerns to a few trusted journalists. Articles began to appear, not directly critical, but asking subtle questions. Is Warren Tech moving too fast? New leadership faces tougher market than expected. Behind the rebrand, sources say morale is low. Claire didn't take it well. She lashed out at staff, fired a PR manager, posted a long, self-congratulatory response online that only made things worse. She accused small-minded men of trying to sabotage a visionary female-led revolution. But this wasn't about gender. It was about competence. And now, finally, I had the board's attention. Several members reached out privately. They didn't want the company destroyed in a misguided power trip. They were ready to talk. I called for an emergency shareholder meeting. And this time, I wasn't walking in as the son they ignored. I was walking in as the man who never left. The boardroom was colder than I remembered. It wasn't the temperature, it was the air, the stillness before a storm. The kind of silence where everyone knows something is about to end. I took my seat at the head of the long walnut table, my name neatly printed on the agenda as acting chairperson, Ethan Warren. For the first time in my career, they couldn't pretend I wasn't in the room. Claire walked in late, of course. She always did love an entrance. A white designer blazer, expensive heels, sunglasses on her head like she was arriving for a Vanity Fair interview. She paused when she saw me, the smile on her face cracking just enough to betray the panic behind it. "Didn't know you were invited," she said, tossing her purse on the table. "I wasn't," I replied. "I called the meeting." She blinked. Before she could respond, Angela stood and began the presentation. She moved fast. Years of legal experience distilled into 20 merciless minutes. Slide by slide, exhibit by exhibit, we laid it all out. The unauthorized negotiations with Asteros Group, the misuse of company funds, the undisclosed conflicts of interest, the fake consulting contracts funneled to her friends, the whistleblower emails she deleted, the votes she manipulated behind the scenes to maintain control. Claire tried to laugh it off, claimed we were twisting the facts, called the documents incomplete, selectively framed, an attack. But the numbers didn't lie. Neither did the testimonies. Former executives had submitted sworn affidavits. Vendor partners confirmed backdoor dealings. A leaked deck from her vision strategy showed plans to gut the company's logistics model entirely, without so much as a vote. And then I stood up. "You didn't just lead poorly," I said. "You endangered everything we built. You turned a legacy into a sandbox, and when it started falling apart, you blamed the foundation." I looked around the table, the same people who once looked through me like I was just the kid in the shadows. "She didn't earn this company," I said. "She inherited your silence." No one said a word, but I didn't need them to. The motion to remove her as CEO was unanimous. Not a single abstention, not even from the board member who was her godfather. Claire didn't argue. She just stared at the table, stunned, like it had never occurred to her that the world might stop revolving around her gravity. When she finally stood, she tried to maintain her dignity, but her voice cracked. "You think this makes you a hero?" she hissed. "You just destroyed our family." I looked her in the eye and replied, "No, you did that the day you fired me. I just turned on the lights." She left the room without another word. The door closed quietly, but the silence that followed echoed louder than any slam. I sat down, my hands steady. For the first time in months, maybe years, I felt something I hadn't in a long time. Peace. Not because I'd won, because I'd taken back what was mine. And now, finally, it was time to rebuild. In the weeks following Claire's removal, Warrantech entered the quietest, most focused chapter of its life. No more press conferences. No more vision boards. No more five-figure retreats to align culture. Just work, real work. I didn't reinstate myself as CEO. That part of me had burned out long ago. Instead, I appointed Marta, our most seasoned and battle-tested executive, as interim CEO. The team cheered the decision. She had earned their respect long before Claire ever ordered her first business card. I took on the role of chairman. Strategic oversight. No desk. No corner office. No nameplate on the door. Just authority. Silent, complete. The first thing we did was clean house. We terminated every questionable vendor contract Claire had signed. We reversed the Asteros deal. We offered severance packages to the good employees who had walked away and invited them back. Most of them returned. We stabilized the company's finances in under 60 days. Clients who had hesitated to renew contracts began calling again. Shareholders who had grown cold sent congratulatory messages. But the calls I waited for never came. Not from my mother. Not from my father. Not even a text. I told myself it didn't matter. That I didn't need their validation. But on some nights, when the office was empty and the silence wrapped around me like a second skin, I caught myself staring at the old photo on the wall, one of the few that had survived every office renovation. A black and white image of a young family, standing in front of the very first Warrantech warehouse. My father proud. My mother smiling. Claire, in a little dress, holding his hand. I was in the background. Unfocused. Out of frame. One day, I took that photo down. Because this company wasn't built by the family in that picture. It was built by the son who was always left out of it. Weeks turned into months. The media caught wind of the leadership shakeup, but the story faded quickly. Claire tried to launch her own consulting brand online, but it fizzled. Her reputation was too far gone. Some said she moved to New York. Others said she started a podcast. I didn't ask. Then, one afternoon, she showed up at headquarters. I saw her through the security feed, dressed plainly, no entourage, no cameras. She signed in like any other visitor. She wanted 5 minutes. Just 5. I agreed. She stepped into my office slowly, glancing at the walls, the furniture, everything that used to be hers. "I just wanted to say I'm sorry," she began. I let her speak. "I know you don't owe me anything. And maybe you'll never believe this, but I thought I could do it. I thought I was supposed to." I nodded, slowly. "You weren't. But you weren't alone in thinking it." We sat in silence for a while. She looked different, tired, older, stripped of that blinding confidence. "I don't expect forgiveness," she said finally. "Good," I replied. "Because I can forgive you. But I'll never trust you again." She swallowed, nodded, and left. That was the last time I saw her. As for my parents, I heard through a family friend that they had sold their house and moved out of state. I sent them a letter, short, polite, not bitter. I didn't expect a reply, and I didn't get one. But that was okay, because I wasn't trying to reclaim a family. I was reclaiming a legacy, and I had done exactly that. 1 year later, I stood on the top floor of our new headquarters. Bigger, stronger, built with scars, but standing proud. My name wasn't on the door. It didn't need to be. It was in every line of code, every truck on the road, every paycheck we sent out. I didn't take revenge. I took everything back, quietly, cleanly, and with purpose. And that made all the difference.